Love is a high-risk behavior.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, High Risk for Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. For those of you who are new here, I pray you find value in at least one thing I say today. And to my old and faithful returning crew, you know just how much I appreciate you. If it is your first time here and you haven't hit that subscription button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around for a few more episodes. We are nearing the finish line of season 3. I can't believe it. I think this is episode 20 or 21. So we'll go to about 26 and then we'll be out of here for a couple of months, maybe a month, and then I'll be back. But if you do like this particular episode, can you let me know by hitting the thumbs up button? That just lets me know how to better tailor this channel for you. There's something very special that I have for you guys today that I was inspired by with talking to someone very important to me. And I really want to share my findings and share what is on my heart that the Lord delivered to me today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I've overcome a lot of challenges in my life. I have shaken a lot of habits in my life. I have conquered a lot of territories in my life, but there's this one persistent thing that no matter how and what I do, continues to rear its ugly head: fear. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain or be a threat to your life. Fear is something that straddles biological instinct and the programming of your mind. Fear is both downloaded and programmed, and none of us are able to escape the distinct qualities of its expression. Whether your stomach quivers at the thought of getting on the tallest roller coaster at Six Flags, or you freeze watching someone experience a medical emergency right in front of you, fear has this innate ability to circumvent all that you want out of a situation to what in the moment seems to be best in said situation. Fear, both an act of survival and reverence, is particularly relevant to our interpersonal relationships and, dare I say, is probably one of the primary drivers of our decision-making when it comes to choosing community, when it comes to interacting with family, and picking a life partner. If that's your style, of course. Fear can drive you towards or away from experiencing life to the fullest if you let it. Because while yes, fear is programmed and downloaded like anything that is part of this matrix of a life that we have, it can be bypassed through awareness and conscious effort. Particularly after upset, disappointment, and most specifically heartbreak, fear will usurp your programming like a virus if it goes undetected. In the age of AI, we are familiar with this impending doom of the great artificial intelligence. We fear it taking over our natural intelligence, thus forcing us into unsafety, into pain, and most importantly, termination. But AI is only as good as its programmer. Every search and every recorded experience is like a file being built into the mind of a great machine. And fear is the file that I want to explore today. How much fear is due to our own filing practices, outdated software, and belief that you are incapable of overcoming challenge, habit, and territory? Is fear the biohazard of human life, preventing you from building the you that is possible, especially the you that is meant for fearless love? Let's explore this file on fear after heartbreak. Let's relate. Heartbreak has a sneaky way of hurting you along your process of healing. At first, it feels like an immense pain to your physical being. You aren't wrong, of course. The stomach is aching. You have an elevated heart rate. Maybe you feel some squeezing in your chest. You have the loss of appetite. There are headaches from crying all the livelong day. And these are all biological symptoms of a broken heart. They are responses to some level of unexpected pain, but fear is a conductor that enters the chat of your healing process right when you are no longer bargaining with it and you are not bargaining with your past and you are ready to move forward into your future. I know I can't be the only one who's experienced this. It's like an annoying pop-up ad that just shoots up after the physical anguish has subsided. So heartbreak starts rewriting itself to survive the threat of ending up in the recycle bin. Every positive encounter receives a pop-up ad reminding you that fear is the purchase that you should make instead of whatever it is that you are searching for in that new relationship. Every negative encounter reinforces your impulsive spending on repetitive thoughts about how familiar this experience is to the last person that you had that hurt you. And for some reason, it's just easier to continue to purchase the same process of thought over and over versus reprogramming or building a new framework around how you see each experience. It's like you have this capacity to rewrite the codes of your heart, but there is this intelligence living inside you that overrides that every single time. Fear is this virus that taps at the keys of your heart with each and every vulnerable experience. And I have a few reasons why it happens, and I want to share those reasons with you today. There are 4 types of fear that are prolonging your heartbreak and keeping you attached to unfounded negative outcomes in new relationships. Number 1 is fear of the unknown. Now, this is a fear of things that you don't know. The unknown is an unrevealed place. It's a place of prediction based on no real founded data or evidence. It's mysterious and it's intriguing. But when it comes to relationships after a breach of trust or a break in consistency, this unknown place is produced by fear of uncertainty. My therapist has actually been taking me through some discussions around my certainty with God and myself on certain areas in my life, right? And certainty is one of the most important core needs, but can be destabilized by the fear of the unknown. And for more reasons than I can list, the unknown about what will happen after a heartbreak can be scarier than actually looking back at the heartbreak itself, because what does the unknown have in store for you really? What could happen that has already happened? Or what could happen that could be worse than what happened? The secrets of the unknown produce uncertainty, and fear becomes the expression of that uncertainty after heartbreak. Seldom have I experienced fear of the unknown and simultaneously experienced positivity and peacefulness. You might hear someone who has had their heart broken say, I don't want to get hurt again, or I don't have any more heartbreak in me, okay? And that assumption that the unknown houses heartbreak for you, for some reason rings much louder than one that it's more advantageous, right? That the unknown perhaps houses a most beautiful outcome for you. The psychology of negative outcomes after a breach of your certainty outweighs even the most positive experiences, especially if there's even more positive experiences. But this thrusts us into this unknown with a prediction that our demise is happening versus a knowing that you are going to prosper. However, it's very hard to actualize in the present a future hope without faith, which is something that I will discuss momentarily. Number 2 is fear of the known. Now, this is a pretty easy one. I am fearful of certain things because I have been hurt by certain things. I recognize patterns of behavior, so it's incumbent upon me to protect myself from those behaviors that will eventually hurt me again. This is not a groundbreaking discovery. And we have all been there, watching something occur or hearing something that just rings a bell in our head, and it's telling us not to trust it because X plus Y equals Z. And most times we are right, so there's no arguing with that. This type of fear, like the other though, is rooted in survival instinct, and it is a deep fight against your extinction. However, it's not only your extinction that you're fighting against, it's your ability to thrive in life as well. Humans don't only want to live, we want to live well, we want to thrive. We want to thrive in a life and experience the best possible outcome in life. If we don't see glimpses of that when we are in a relationship with someone, if we are in a healthy enough state, we will actually eliminate whatever it is that is seeking to destroy us. Unconsciously, we do desire the best possible outcome, and most times we need that data of fear to base our decisions off of. And I'm not saying that it's the best way, I'm just saying that it is a way, okay? Number 3 is a lack of data. It's hard to make a sound judgment or a commitment to someone without enough data. This is especially true with dating and courting for a life partner. You need to see this person through different seasons. You need to be around them in more scenarios so you can make a better guess about their ability to provide you with certainty and with safety, and for you to be able to be yourself so that you can potentially build a life with them. And the same goes for friendships, but there I think is a less of a significance for the gravity of data collection when it comes to friendships, perhaps because, the greater life outcome, I guess, is not as contingent upon your friendships, though I really think that's debatable. And the Bible has a couple things to say about that as well. Data collection is your personal experiences, though, and they are being collected into the files of your soul. So you sort through these files upon every interaction, measuring them against prior experiences with people, even people that have nothing to do with this new person. And you start making arrangements for them based on your experiments. The interesting thing about collecting data is when you are conducting these experiments, the considered data will almost always be in favor of your predicted outcome, even if the full collection of data is proving you otherwise. Like one of my girlfriends said to me a long time ago, don't go looking for information that you're not ready to see. We are very good at siding with what appeals to our affections and most protected beliefs, even when everything that we have gathered might be proving otherwise. When it comes to lack of data, though some of us feel like we can never have enough, and that might be me, to make comfortable decisions and confident decisions, we might experience a little bit of analysis paralysis. We might experience fear, and we don't want to make the wrong decision, so we become paralyzed by all of this data that we've been collecting. So we just chalk it up as the reason being them versus the reason being our fear and lack of faith in God to guide us to our best possible outcome and give us the grace to manage it. So that leads me to number 4, that a lack of faith may be what you are suffering from. Fear is not always biological, and sometimes it's spiritual. Now, I would argue, honestly, that most times it is spiritual because I believe we are more spirit than body. But especially if you have the privilege, like many of you do that are watching and, in a safe place, to not be threatened on a daily basis physically. Most of us are not living in places where our lives are being threatened on a daily basis. Fear, of course, takes on a different form when you're not in this deep state of stress and survival instinct like some other places of unrest around the world. So we bring it to this space of spiritual fear. Faith is this substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. Remember earlier when I spoke about the unknown? When dealing with the unknown from a place of fear, we often lean towards the negative projections of what we do not see or know because we have no evidence or data to go off of. And it's just easier to assume the negative than it is the positive. However, when it comes to faith and fear in connection to love, when all we seek within our relationships is love, we know that perfect love casts out fear. And the scripture from 1 John 4:18 says additionally that fear is like a torment or punishment, which we know to be a negative consequence of fear. Really, that's the consequence that we are all fearing, is torment, anguish. So why is it that we continue to choose that when we choose fear? But love, perfect love, casts that out. Or in other words, it is driven out by love. And I think the order of this, the way that this is written actually really makes sense. It's particularly important. Perfect love does not exist because fear has left the chat. Perfect love exists and it drives fear away because truthfully, there are many things that can coexist, but fear and love actually are not one of them. Love must exist so that virus of fear can be absolved of its purpose in our lives, which is torment, is leaving us alone and being in anguish. The fear that we feel when we sense something unfamiliar or something that is reminiscent to a prior experience means that there is a resistance to love or an absence of the existence of love. Let me say it like this. Love is a great leveler. It levels fear, it levels discouragement, it levels torment, it levels loneliness, and it has the capacity to override our programming and all that we have downloaded from past relational experiences. The experience of God's love and godly love from another person needs no invitation, but it does need participation. And at some point, we have to decide, is love actually what we desire? And understand that faith is required to receive it, particularly for those of us who have suffered heartbreak. Your participation is required in love. Your willingness to receive is required. And that means to an extent that you have to make yourself high risk for heartbreak. But that doesn't mean that heartbreak has to be at the other end of the unknown. Remember? You're high risk, but that doesn't mean you have to experience the heartbreak. What if perfect love is at the other end of trust, of faith, of love? What if it is at the other end? I know not many of us are willing to take that risk anymore. I know that many of us don't see it as worth it, or that we maybe don't even have the capacity. We don't have any more heartbreak left in us to give. But what if that is not what God even has for you on the other end of your faith? Are you willing to consider that at all? Remember, I talked about that data collection? Most times we're only willing to consider what has happened and what we have seen versus what is the substance of faith, the unseen, the unexperienced, the hoped for. What if you trusting your heart to the Lord first is what you need to reprogram how you see love? Maybe it's not trusting it to them. Maybe it's trusting it to Him. Ultimately, whatever you choose, you are subject to the antivirus software, that virus being fear, that protection. You are subject to that protection of God. And even if heartbreak does befall you again, you can trust Him to never leave you through it. I've been there. I want you to trust me, but I can't say trust me. You got to find out for yourself. It's not God who breaks hearts. He instead stays close to those whose hearts have been broken and to those hearts who have been handled out of fear and not handled out of perfect love. Don't let someone's fear program you into fear as well. Don't prolong your healing. Perfect love casts out fear. And I am a firm believer that there are some fears that can only be driven out, that can only be cast out in true states of vulnerability, which is in relationship with others. Have faith even though you have no data. Have faith even though you do have data, because all of your programming is rewritten when you decide to trust the engineer of your heart. Thank you guys so much for loving yourself first, so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.
Why don't you stay a little longer? You like what you like, right? Subscribe to the channel so we can spend a little more time together, and maybe comment your thoughts because I care what you're thinking. Love is the risk and the reward.